What do you see the role of digital infrastructure, measurement, and so on in making that happen?
Sure. So firstly, thank you for the invitation to participate on the panel today. So let me just start off by saying, without a doubt, I believe digital is a fundamental and critical building block for any decarbonization journey. Without digital, I don't believe we have the time or the ability to decarbonize correctly. So let me just put that in context. You mentioned two things, the value chain and you mentioned net zero. So let's start on the value chain. If you want to decarbonize a value chain, you have to know what carbon is in the value chain. You have to know the baseline, and you have to know from where you're starting to where you're ending. And the only way to do that today is through, if you do it at the product level, is through product carbon footprinting. This process today is normally done by consultants. It's highly manual. It's normally done once. And if you have hundreds or thousands of products, it might take you until 2070 to do it, just to know your baseline. And so by automating this with digital, okay, you can actually accelerate your understanding of the carbon within your value chain, and then you can work to decarbonize. And what happens if you change your feedstock, or you move from a hydrocarbon energy source to a renewable energy source? If you don't have a digital automated product carbon footprinting system in place, you cannot recalculate how you're improving on that carbon footprint. So digital, to me, is a fundamental part of how you assess the carbon in your value chain, and that you can assess it and revise it and renew it and track it almost daily. So digital, to me, is critical. The second thing you mentioned is net zero. So let me just say, for many of us, we're in the hard-to-abate industry, as was mentioned earlier. We cannot get to zero because carbon is a fundamental part of our product or our process. So we have to be net zero, which means we have to actually work on removing carbon to offset that residual carbon that remains from our industries. So for example, CCUS is a key way that as multiple hard-to-abate industries can work together to address this net zero requirement. But CCS is expensive, complicated. How do you actually do it? How do you tie it all together? Without digital, it is extremely difficult to deploy and implement a CCS program. Take, for example, the most fundamental requirement is to have a subsurface reservoir in which to put your carbon. Without digital, you cannot identify a suitable subsurface site to sequester your carbon. All of that, finding a reservoir that's big enough, that has no faults or has limited possibility for escape, that has what we call cap rock integrity. All of this is determined through data, subsurface data. So without digital, it is impossible to select a place to sequester your carbon. Think about capture. How do you size your compressor without digital simulation or creating digital twins, as was mentioned earlier? How do you transport your carbon if you can't create your transport network and then simulate how that carbon is going to flow through that network? And is it going to flow? And then to inject. Imagine injecting super cool fluid into a warm reservoir. The physics of what happens there is complicated. If you cannot simulate that, you may build this whole system and have it break at the point of injection. And once you've injected your carbon, everybody wants to make sure it stays underground for thousands of years. So you have to monitor that that carbon is not escaping. How do we monitor? It's digital. We have sensors, we have fiber optics, and we use digital tools to monitor. So without digital, I think the whole process cannot be achieved. Thank you.